What I've liked best about not only MindWorks, but the whole culture of the school changing and shifting to people having these conversations, what I like best about that is that it feels like it works better when we're all working together at it. So a few years ago, I might have been trying to incorporate a few more study strategies or to have these conversations in a math classroom, but it felt like kids were sort of hearing it as yada, yada, yada when they just hear it from one teacher. And when all of us are talking about it and all of us are using the same language and they're getting it from all sides, then it feels like it starts to sink into them and seem more real, and they can see the connections of what they're hearing from one teacher to the next to the next. So that's been more powerful.
The obvious place for us to start with in our MindWorks program was taking a look at teaching kids what a growth mindset is. And the part of a growth mindset that I have found the most applicable as far as my advisory conferences go, and then also working with my students in an English classroom, has been looking at how we take in feedback. So feedback is something that allows us to grow, and when you pair that with the concept of neuroplasticity, and kids know what that is, and then you pair that with the idea that getting feedback about things that aren't going so well, you need to also have strategies to improve that area in yourself. When we put all those things together, I have found that kids are a lot more open to feedback, and they're also more productive when they come in for help. When we can make it more explicit for them, when they can make it more explicit for themselves about what they need help on, and then how they're going to make that happen. The whole machine just starts to work in a way I hadn't seen before.
Well, when I took my English exam first semester, my vocab scores were lower than I'd like them to be, and I was using Quizlet. And then I tried handwriting my own flashcards, and I found that worked better for me, and my scores improved, and it was a better strategy for me to use.
Well, at the beginning of the year, I would be like, I can't do this, and I'm just going to fail it, and then I would just kind of let it happen. But now, towards the end of the year, I learned that if I just find a strategy that works for me, like going in for help, then it really helps me get to where I want to be, and I do a lot better, and I say I won't fail.
MindWorks is an amazing program that teaches very specific resilient skills, characteristics, and traits. So we get at growth mindset thinking, which is optimistic thinking. Not everybody comes into the world as an optimistic, open thinker, but the good news is we can teach those skills. So our MindWorks program definitely teaches that for students so that they can think about their learning, think about errors within their learning as opportunities, but then that thinking can transfer into other parts of life too that help them become productive citizens and well-adjusted citizens as well.
I think it's really important that students understand how their brain works, but especially understand that they get to play a part in changing their brain's function. When you think of how empowering it is for students to know that if they do something, choose a strategy, and use a strategy, that they are going to be very likely to actually create neural pathways that form the very best habits for them with regard to learning, that improve their ability to do well in school, and that they are taking an active role in that. When students understand how their brain works, how learning works, and what strategies they can use, especially to leverage their strengths, they are much more likely to self-advocate. So they're more likely to talk to a teacher in a way that conveys not just a self-reflection and self-understanding, but a responsibility for their own learning. And by doing that, they're further empowered and they become collaborators with their teachers in the learning process.
The number one thing has to be multitasking. Just the idea that we are trying to debunk this whole myth that you can multitask, and you have to reach them at a level where you have to prove to them, convince them that you can't do this. I know you think you're doing it, but you're not doing it very well. And so lessons like that, because they hit home. Today's lesson, thinking flexibility, and just showing them the various images and how they look at an image and they saw one thing, and yet you were trying to get them to see the other thing, but they kept coming back to that one thing. And it's just like, no, but just look at it this way. The activity, the T activity, had one group that solved it in 90 seconds. The other group took 8 minutes, and they didn't solve it. I just stopped them. So we had 90 seconds, 3 minutes, and like 10 seconds, and then one group just couldn't fix it. And then the one member from the 92nd group came up and showed them, and they put that one piece, just turned it. They was like, "You can do that? I never thought to do that." But that's the whole idea. You're so fixed in your way of approaching this that you are oblivious to all of the other methods. And so those are just some of the ways in which we're reaching them.
So when we talked about comfort zones versus areas of discomfort, as an advisor, I saw that being a really valuable place for kids to sit down actually with their parents and talk through, this is where I'm comfortable and that's why this keeps going well. And this is where I'm uncomfortable. And we had kids talking about what they were going to do to get into their discomfort zones. And it was really cool for parents to hear kids verbalize that. Because parents know all too well their kids' discomfort zones. I'm sure those things come up at home when they're doing homework and there's frustration. But to have the kids in a school setting talk about their discomforts and have a plan for how they were going to attack those, I found that to be really a productive conversation where we were all sitting around the kid and encouraging them to take risks and grow into those discomfort zones in ways that were going to really benefit them.
An element of growth mindset that worked for me this year was the aspect of feedback. It was really helpful because whether it be positive or negative, because positive told me that I was going in the right direction and negative showed me my mistakes and what I needed to improve on. I really liked Pear Deck that we used in English and many other classes this year, where it was anonymous, low risk. You would answer a question and the teacher would give you feedback on whether you were correct or incorrect. And it was really helpful before a test because it showed us what we were doing wrong and helped us correct those mistakes before.
In the past, I would only participate when I was confident that I had the right answer. Now with a growth mindset, I can participate even when I'm not as confident because I know that the feedback will help me learn and grow.
I've learned new study strategies, how to get better rest, how to study for a test better, how to just manage my time better in general. It's helped a lot though, so it's good.
If I'm taking a math test and I have to figure out something, if I'm aware of how I'm thinking, it's not like I'm just doing the math test. It's different for me because it's easier for me to go back and go, oh, okay. And instead of just going and changing the answer, you're able to see what you did wrong. And if you're able to see what you did wrong, that way you're able to shape your brain basically and know better ways to do it later so you don't make the same mistakes.